Good evening. My name is Tom Line, and you've tuned into my YouTube channel, Civil War Corner. Tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite characters from the Civil War, a man by the name of Rufus Dawes. Rufus Dawes was born on July 4th, 1838 in Malta, Ohio. Part of my fascination with Dawes is I lived for 2 years in Malta, Ohio in the late 90s. It was an extremely small town on the Muskingum River at that time, so in 1838 it obviously was very, very small. Dawes was the great-grandson of William Dawes, who rode with Paul Revere. Just one of the beginnings of the Dawes story that make it so fascinating. He had immigrated to Wisconsin prior to the Civil War, and at the outbreak of the war, he organized a volunteer company from Juneau County and was elected captain. His Company K was mustered into the 6th Wisconsin Volunteer Infantry for 3 years' service. The 6th Wisconsin, of course, was a member of the famed Iron Brigade, one of the strongest and most famous units of the Union Army. In June of 1862, Dawes was promoted to major. He served with his regiment at the Battle of Second Bull Run, South Mountain, Antietam, and Fredericksburg. He was in command of the regiment for most of the Battle of Antietam after Lieutenant Colonel Edward S. Bragg was shot and injured. In March of 1863, Dawes received a promotion to the rank of lieutenant colonel and served in the Chancellorsville campaign, leading a river crossing under fire at Fitzhugh's Crossing on April 29th. This all leads up to his moment in the sun, and that was at Gettysburg. That's where the 6th Wisconsin made their name. They brought 340 men to the field and lost 30 killed, 116 wounded, and 22 missing. If you know the story of Gettysburg, you know about the Iron Brigade on day one at Gettysburg, July 1st. They were one of the first units on the field for the Union. It says the regiment was initially held in reserve from the rest of the Iron Brigade. When Joe Davis's Mississippi Brigade threatened to outflank the Iron Brigade, the 6th Wisconsin charged across open ground to the railroad cut north of the Chambersburg Pike, trapping much of Davis's command and taking a number of prisoners, particularly from the 2nd Mississippi. It is said that the 6th lost 1 man for every yard they approached. The Confederates had taken refuge in the railroad cut, which made for a very good rifle pit, until the 6th got to the edge of the rifle pit, and then it became shooting fish in a barrel. Because by late afternoon, the Union position north and west of Gettysburg collapsed, and the 6th was forced to retreat through Gettysburg to Cemetery Hill. It was ordered with the rest of the 1st Division to the north side of Culp's Hill, which it defended for the rest of the battle. Again, this was Dawes' moment in the sun and the 6th moment in the sun. He later served that year in the Mine Run campaign. During a furlough, Dawes returned to Ohio and married Mary Beeman Gates from Marietta, Ohio, on January 18, 1864. Returning to the Army of the Potomac, he served at the Battle of the Wilderness and the Siege of Petersburg. In July of 1864, Dawes was offered the full rank of colonel, but declined the promotion. He was mustered out of the Army on August 10, 1864, following the battles of Spotsylvania and Cold Harbor. It is believed that Dawes suffered from at least a type of post-traumatic stress during the war and after the war, which certainly is not surprising for anyone who served for any period of time in the Civil War. On February 24, 1866, President Andrew Johnson nominated Dawes for appointment to the grade of Brevet Brigadier General of Volunteers to rank from March 13, 1865, and the United States Senate confirmed that appointment on April 10, 1866. After the war, he returned to Marietta and entered into the lumber business. In August of that year, his son Charles Gates Dawes was born. Charles Gates Dawes would go on to be Vice President of the United States under Calvin Coolidge. So just another thing that happened in Dawes' life that makes him just a truly American original. He had several other children. Many of them became very successful. Later, he served on the Board of Trustees at Marietta College from 1871 until his death, 28 years later. He was also a trustee for Ohio's Institute of the Deaf and Dumb. Dawes was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1881 as a representative from the 15th Congressional District. A Republican, he served for 1 term before losing his bid for re-election because he voted against the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. In 1890, he published a well-received account of his Civil War career, service with the 6th Wisconsin Volunteers. This memoir was republished in Madison, Wisconsin by the State Historical Society of Wisconsin for the Wisconsin Civil War Centennial Commission. Dawes was offered the job of Minister of Persia by President McKinley. He turned that down because he was in failing health. 2 years later, on August 1st, 1899, Dawes died in Marietta, Ohio. He is buried in Oak Grove Cemetery, and in 2003, he was elected to Marietta College's Hall of Honor. Rufus Dawes, one of those men who made quite the name for himself in the Civil War. If you like what you've seen and heard, please click like and subscribe, and thank you very much for your time.